Welcome back to Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health. We had head coach Todd Bowles for the first half of our show. Now we have offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard, a.k.a. the man of the hour. Coach, thanks so much for joining us, and congrats on that win.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to it. It's nice to start 1-0.
Yeah, not too shabby. Especially, just getting your first win as your first game as an offensive coordinator, I have to imagine there's just a bit of a weight off the shoulders, sigh of relief that no matter how the win came, much less at a last-second one, that it's just kind of a reassuring feeling.
For sure. We put so much into it in the offseason and being able to start 1-0, and then you hit it. It was the first game, so we always want to win that game. With the fact that it was versus a division rival, to be able to set the tone for that as well was huge. But however long it took and however we had to get it done, it was just good to come out on the left side of the column.
I imagine as you were planning, looking forward, someday dreaming of being an offensive coordinator, you were like, and it'd be really great if I had to do a game-winning 2-minute drive, but we've also had to shuffle the entire offensive line and we're missing a couple wide receivers. I'm sure that's exactly how you would have drawn it up as an OC.
That's exactly how I saw it happen. Didn't know how it was going to end, but it was just good to be able to get that 2-minute drive, and we just have all the confidence in the world in those guys that are in there, and then especially how well Bake plays in 2-minute situations and playing on the ball. Once we got it, we knew we needed a field goal, but everyone's mentality was that we're going to go down here and score a touchdown, so whatever it took to get that done.
I like it. And yeah, what stands out about that 2-minute drill and what you guys did well?
Just the ability for everybody to pick up the blitzes that they were showing us and being able to have a good drive start and bake it the ball out. And then it was nice to have the penalty, which kept it moving down the field as well. And then just the communication from the staff to the players, especially Bake, on some of the looks they were giving us, where we had an opportunity to complete a couple of those passes and move the ball on the field, but the one that Mech ended up scoring on, just guys seeing it up in the booth, communicating down to the field and being able to get it to him. There was a high alert that thing was going to hit.
And then Emeka, look, I know that you guys all probably are like, yeah, we knew this was coming. I feel like he was so hyped coming, and we heard you guys bragging about the way he plays, his mentality, his attitude, all of that, to the point where I'm like, man, how's this guy going to live up to this offseason hype? And then, 2 touchdowns in the opener, that might do it.
Yeah.
Tell me why you guys were bragging on him the way you were, and then why he was able to come in and totally back that up.
Yeah, he's been as expected since he got here, and everything we've seen from even rookie minicamp all the way through training camp, he just makes so many plays in practice that you expect it to be in the game. But to your point, he's still a rookie. It's still his first crack at it in terms of playing under the big lights. He's played in some massive games at Ohio State. I was talking to him pregame, and I believe that his last game was there as well, so he had some familiarity with the building. But at the end of the day, you expect that, but for him to actually go out there and have the big plays that he made, and then to be able to go ultimately win the game for us as well, it just shows up from how he conducts himself through the practice week and listening to Chris and Mike from the time he got here, and it's really cool to see it on game day and having a chance to win the game for us.
And so we have heard a lot about his mentality and attitude and just how mature he is coming in as a rookie. What about the actual X's and O's of him as a wide receiver? What do you remember watching on his tape before you guys drafted him, and then even what he showed in this game one of what the tangible things about the way he plays wide receiver?
You could just tell that he was a really good route runner. He had the speed, he had the strength. I would say his contact balance on running routes, and when someone's trying to reroute you and you're still able to fight through that, whether it's knocking their arm down or shouldering through to get through contact, you could just tell how strong he was. And then we talk about running through the catch so much, and that just means that when the ball is thrown, he doesn't jump for it. If the ball is right there in front of him, he stays on the ground. So when you catch it and you stay on the ground, you can get as much yak as possible, which is yards after catch, which is something we harp on. So you could see that, and then by talking to him, his ability to play different positions and move around in the offense is huge, because not everyone can do that. So the fact that he can do that, and then he's really good in the run game as well. So it just makes a very well-rounded receiver. You can play him at all 3 spots. You know he's going to do the right thing, and he's going to come up with a big play when we need it.
I love it. We're talking offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard. How about Baker's game? I know that he has a few plays he'd want back, but then also, definitely came through, like you said, the 2-minute drill that he came through in the clutch. No interceptions, 3 touchdowns. Yep. You look at that part of the stat line, and that's definitely the dream.
Absolutely. It's not the start that we wanted as a unit. I know it's not the start that he wanted it as well, but once we got settled in there, he made some big-time throws, especially the one to Mech on that 3rd and 2, I think from the 30-yard line, was huge. And then once he settled in, he was finding the guys and trying to get it to Mike and get it to Mech, and then you hit on it. Even no matter how the game had gone up until that point, we had the opportunity with a 2-minute drive to go down the field and win the game, and that's when he's at his best, is when the pressure is the highest, and it showed up again. It's something that you, again, don't take for granted, but you know that he's going to be in there when the moment's the biggest to be able to go out and the guys just rallied around him so much, and there's so much belief that we're going to do that you feel good as a play caller because you know that we have a chance to go down here and move the ball and score.
What did you learn about what it takes as an offensive coordinator when the rhythm isn't there early, whether it's just how Baker's feeling or just what's happening offensively? It's not going exactly according to plan at the beginning. Those adjustments then, what did you learn in that situation in the game of what you attribute being able to get you guys back on the right path?
Just getting back to some of our core plays, things that we know by heart. We know what should be open, trying to get it to the playmakers, whether it's throwing it to Mike or throwing it to Mech or handing it to Buck or Rashad, and just getting back to the things that we know. That way we can play fast, get us back on track, and then being able to go from there. Once we get into a little bit of rhythm and there's confidence and we're pressing on the defense and hopefully they're getting worn out, to be able to now get back into some of the things that are more game plan specific.
And then now, of course, we got to talk about this whole offensive line thing. This is so interesting. Of course, again, you guys had known for a while you were doing this, but because of practice being kind of closed to the media for a while, for the rest of the world, it got to be this fun little game day surprise. So tell me a little bit about just how this materialized between you and Coach Carberry and Coach Bowles, and just what led to this decision and all the factors that play into shuffling that many guys around on a position that is known for the need for continuity, and to have the confidence in the guys and Baker to do that.
Yeah, it was not a decision we took lightly, and it was something that we worked during training camp. It might not be offensive line, but it can also be receivers or running backs and be able to move them around to different positions. And it was something that we played with in case of an emergency, where if Graham needed to go out there and Breads needed to go to center. And from what we saw in practice, we really liked the way it looked. And so from that, it created the thought process that this might be something we can use moving forward with Tristan being out. And then those guys just owning it. It is a big deal to move from center to move to left tackle, but with Graham's history of doing that and playing it at Duke, and then Bread's history of being able to do that in his past, and to your point, with those guys being team first and selfless, that they can now get on the same page to be able to have the calls right, especially in an environment week one where we need to be able to use silent cadence, and it's not the traditional at-home cadence, and having all that being on the same page. And it's a testament to all five of them, and then Mike being able to step in there as well. And then really what Cody was able to do, especially in our tempo packages and our on-the-ball plays, where he's the one really giving the signals back to Bake as the right guard. So it's hats off to them for being able to get that done. It's not easy. It was something we felt was in the best interest of the team, especially week one, and they owned it and went out there and played pretty well for the most part.
Yeah, and for you, I mean, again, first-time play caller, first-time offensive coordinator, I have to imagine this threw some wrenches into your original plans. And, you know, how challenging was that for you to have what I'm sure was your mindset with a full set of personnel, what your offense would look like, and then how much did you feel like you had to potentially sacrifice to try to make this work, just even when you found out Tristan alone was hurt before you knew what this solution would be?
Yeah, it was never a good feeling once we found out about Tristan, because we know we're not going to be able to replace him. But just having the thought process that there was the depth at that position to be able to potentially move things around after what we saw in practice as an emergency situation. And then just a little bit like we dealt with last year with the receiver position, or it could have been the tight end position when Cade was out, is just trying to put those guys in as good a place as possible to make plays and use their talents versus what Chris might bring to the table or J-Mac might bring to the table, and not asking guys to do things that might not be their strong suit. So it's not unfortunate, because everybody deals with it in the NFL in terms of the injuries and having to adjust the game plan week to week, but we did have a little bit of reps at it last year.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, Graham, I was thinking about how exciting for him of getting to have the continuity of, now it's his second year, feeling a little bit more comfortable, but now we're changing positions on him, although it is at least what he's done before. So what are your expectations and hopes for Graham this year, especially when he's able to get back at center, and the ways that you've already seen him grow and mature and learn since last year, even with it being such a fresh new thing?
It's hats off to him for being able to come in thinking, okay, now it's my second year, I'm at playing center, and I can have all the great communication with Bake and having it with Breads and Cody, and then having to move out to tackle. So it's just a testament to what he does, putting in the work to be able to get it done. And then he's just taking strides on his command of the huddle and the communication at the line, and he just knows the scheme and everything so much better. Even though he had owned it last year, just having the second year in it, now he can fix things before Bake needs to even do it, so Bake can have his mind really on the outside and how we need to adjust routes potentially. He can see the blitzes and be able to be on the same page with how we pick those up as well.
And then Luke, man, I mean, re-signing him to a deal had to be exciting for you to know you got him and Tristan both on your bookends locked up for a while now. And tell me what it is about Luke that made you guys say, yeah, like we really want to make sure we get him back here, and just what really excites you about knowing his potential moving forward.
He just embodies everything that we're about when we're talking about player acquisition with the Bucs, and guys that are team first but are very tough, and he's really good in the run game. He's really good in the drop back pass game, so his versatility to be able to do that, be able to get him on the perimeter at times, pulling in the screen game. He's such a good schematic fit for what we're trying to do. And then by his work that he's done over the last couple of years, being able to pay off and be able to get him paid, and just know that you're good on the left side, you're good on the right side, they both deserve it, and they're going to be around here for a while, is definitely something that myself as in the staff, we look at as it just brings a smile to our face.
Yeah, I feel like Luke and Tristan, get a lot of the attention maybe for the O-linemen just being the tackles out there, and Graham being the high draft pick last year. I feel like it leaves Bredesen and Cody kind of like as the more unsung heroes of the offensive line. Tell me what makes them so talented, and even just Ben's ability to play center, with only a couple weeks notice, and just what the two of them bring to that interior side.
It's very selfless, and then it starts with those guys. We talk about winning the game in the trenches. It can be in the run game or in their pass protection, but then his ability to just go do something he's done years ago, but then pick it up and be able to execute it in a game. And we harp on playing longer and harder than the opponent, and those guys embody that. They're two of the first guys that are at the pile picking up the running back after a run. They're the ones cleaning up the pile on the protection to keep Bake safe. And then they set the tempo. If somebody's doing something on defense, taking a cheap shot, they're going to go handle that themselves. And it's not just something as coach speak, but they really believe it. They harp on it in the room. So you know that Bake's interest, he has their best interest at heart in terms of preparing him on the blitz protection meeting and being able to pick up the blitzes and keep him safe. So those guys love it, and they have a great relationship with him, which is really cool to see on our end.
I love it. We're going to have more coming up on Buccaneers Total Access with offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard, brought to you by Advent Health. This is Buccaneers Radio. Welcome back to Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health. We are here with offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard. Right before the break, we were talking about the relationship, between Baker and his offensive line, which we know is tighter than, anyone else in the league, I have to imagine.
Definitely.
And I also think that Baker, we love the fact that he's the guy that'll lower the shoulder, and he's just a guy being a dude. But I know you've talked about the fact that he's also, I think, way more cerebral of a quarterback than people maybe either give him credit for or expect him to be. Tell me what it's like for you two, and just kind of nerding out about football and the ways that he approaches it from such a cerebral standpoint.
Yeah, you can just tell on the conversations we have how much time he puts in, whether it's with the O-line, watching the protections, as well as on his own. Because then we're having conversations about what we've seen on tape, say, for instance, even playing Houston this week, that he's already watched, and we're watching the Rams game from last night, and he's already remembering things that happened in it. And then his recall from what actually just happened on the previous play when he comes off, even if it didn't go well, he'll say, hey, I know I need to do this or do that, or I need to hang on this route longer, or I need to get the protection right here. So a lot of the stuff correcting with him, he already knows it. And then we both, of course, love watching tape and being able to try to exploit weaknesses in the defense and who we want to attack. And it just is one of those things where you would assume guys like to watch a lot of tape, but it's just not the case across the league. So the fact that he loves watching tape and preparing, and not only preparing for what he's expecting to see, but, hey, what if they do this? What are we going to get to? So it's just not guaranteed, but it's something that he hangs his hat on. It's really cool to see.
And then I know Mike, got every year, it just seems like Mike Evans gets better, which is wild to think about. Did it feel to you like you watched him come into training camp and just like, oh yeah, this is prime form Mike Evans? Yeah,
I thought from the time that he got to camp that he looked somehow better than he did last year. And then he had such a good camp, and he's moving so well that I'd say, comparing it to a year ago today, he's even in a better spot, which is a testament to what he did in the offseason and taking care of his body and training, being able to go put another great year on tape. And the fact that he can look better than he did last year is just amazing.
You know, we've been celebrating kind of the 50th year, and there have been some events lately where we've talked about milestone events, and a lot of people have brought up him getting the 1,000 yards last year. And Baker talked about the pressure to get it, and, you know, Bowles making the decision to do it. And I know you were part of the team then, but you were not the decision maker then.
Yeah.
Do you feel this pressure of, like, Mike has to get 1,000 yards? Like, that's how Baker put it. He's like, I can't be the guy that doesn't get him the yards.
1,000 yards?
Yeah.
We want him to get it. And I think the point that we made last year, even though he missed those games and he was able to catch up on the yardage to be able to put himself in a position versus New Orleans to get it, was that, for one, we were trying to go to the playoffs. And I know Mike cares about that even more than the stats. But we also knew that for us to get to the playoffs, Mike needs the ball. He needs it often. He needs it early. He needs it late. So the way we look at it is those things go hand in hand. Mike gets his touches and yards, and it helps us score points and win the game, and it also builds towards another 1,000-yard season. Yeah,
Mike getting a lot of yards and touchdowns is usually a good sign
Absolutely.
For the rest of us. I know you had particularly talked about in some press conferences your excitement for Jalen McMillan this year, and I know that was devastating to see him go down, and you know, really hoping he has a speedy recovery back. But what was it like for you, and how it affected what you wanted that wide receiver room to look like on game day, and then also just dealing with, you know, losing him from a personal standpoint, and just kind of the way you're trying to cope with that from the on the field and the off the field standpoint?
Yeah, we just hated it for him because he was in such a good place. He ended the season so strong last year, and then he came back into the offseason program even in better shape. You could tell he put on a little bit of weight. He looked stronger. He, of course, had a better grasp of the offense because a lot of the stuff was similar to last year. So he now had that recall where he could play even faster. He could help out some of the younger guys that had joined the team. So it was very unfortunate for him because we're not going to be able to replace him, of course. But just hate it just because of the spot that he was in and how well he was doing, especially in the joint practices for him to go down. We just hate it for him. But then from there, it's about a lot of those guys that are playing in those spots now. I mean, Mecca's now playing a slightly different position than he did before J-Mac got hurt, so it's hats off to him for being able to do that as well. And then for those other guys that are able to fill in as well and try to get them the ball and fill that role of, does it need to be a blocking guy, or does it need to be a guy that's handling the dirty work, whether it's, I say blocking, is it on the blocking a D end or is it blocking a DB, and being able to handle that role. And then those guys being able to play multiple positions. That's what that receiver needs to do. We'll call it the fourth, fifth receiver. You need to be able to play the X, Z, and the F, and help T-Mac on special teams. So those guys are really a jack of all trades.
I know that one of the people that had to step up in that room in this last game was Sterling Shepard, and only had 3 catches, but he made the most of them, of getting our first down, getting us something that continues the game-winning drive, and even maybe helped with a potential almost interception, played a little defense on that one. So talk about just what it's like to have a guy like that as your, like you mentioned, a fourth or fifth guy that has the kind of experience he does.
It's huge. We just love Shep's mentality, and he is, you guys have seen it, he's the same person in the meeting room that he is on the practice field, that he is in the locker room before the game, that he is during the game. And as much football as he's played, and being the really number one receiver where all the balls and all the targets are going to him, to now the role where he is, where, okay, he might not get the lion's share like Mike and Mech would get, but he doesn't complain about it. Massive plays he had yesterday. You hit on it, the first third down conversion, being able to have that on the scramble drill. The 1 and the 2 minute really kept the drive alive, which was massive in his play strength and how hard he plays to be able to fight through the linebacker to get the yards necessary, knocking down the pass that could have been potentially intercepted. And then he takes his role as a blocker very seriously as well. He's trying to get a hat on a hat. And just the energy that he brings by making a play, it just juices up everyone else, because he's so animated in his celebrations that they love to see him get the ball and do something good with it. And then it really energizes the whole unit after that.
We're talking to offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard. Tez Johnson, I feel like really cool potential, guy to contribute. Of course, maybe special teams as a wide receiver. As a late round pick like him, what are the things that excite y'all that, really got him that roster spot and where you could see him not only this season, but maybe moving forward?
A lot of the stuff that he was doing at Oregon, you could see where they're running similar concepts that we run here. And so the fact that he was able to utilize those there we call them choice routes, option routes, where it looks like on most of his college tape he was making the right decisions on that, and he was so explosive after the catch in terms of his run after catch yak ability like we've talked about. We felt like it was going to be a good fit for the scheme, and then you saw that in training camp, in the practice, even in the joint practices, and then what he was able to do in the Buffalo game by now really being the premier receiver and trying to get him the ball and the plays that he made either down the field or just on some of the shorter routes where he's able to have a good run after catch. We think he's in a really good spot, and especially as we get to build into the season, hoping to increase his role and get him the ball, but he's done a nice job, especially having more reps after J-Mac went down.
And so now what are your hopes for when Chris Godwin's able to come back of how you want to approach it as an offensive coordinator, knowing here's one of your star guys, but maybe you don't want to do too much too fast, and just what that could look like for your offense and the way you want to bring him back?
Yeah, we want to just see where Chris is at and not, to your point, overload him, because he's one of those people where he's just, once he's there, he's going to do everything. And we know he's just going to grind it out, and we're going to have to save Chris from Chris because of how hard he works and how much he wants to help the team. But he already knows the scheme. He knows how to run the routes. He knows how to play all three positions. And so for him just to catch up schematically with what we're doing, for him should be really easy. It's just going to be a matter of how much he can take early on how many plays per game or how many plays in a row. And then we'll just go from there as he builds up that play strength and his play stamina.
And then looking at the run game, that was obviously one of the things that was most exciting last year, was just the growth in that area and just putting up really great numbers, the emergence of Bucky. I know that the NFL is not a league where you get to just do the same thing year to year and it worked just as well, that everybody's making adjustments, right. And now everybody knows to expect a good Bucs run game. So what was that like for you to try to figure out a way to keep that success going, you know, not make massive changes, but find a way to keep it new and fresh and still playing at that level?
Yeah, it's all about those things that we know that we were good at last year, which should fit what Bucky does well, what Shaw does well, what Tuck does well as the combinations on the blocks that the O-line does a good job of. So how can we take some of those and keep it the same, dress it up a little different ways formationally so the defense doesn't necessarily know what we're running, and then be able to add in a couple new wrinkles that we might have seen from around the NFL or college football to try to add things that the defense might not have seen, like say yesterday on a couple of the plays where they could have been new plays from this year. We didn't necessarily run it last year. That way they don't have an idea each time on if you're in 12 personnel, you're running this. If you're in 11 personnel, you're running that, just to try to stay ahead.
And then what are the hopes for Bucky year 1 to year 2? I mean, I know typically a lot of what people talk about is, you know, running backs make the biggest jump in pass protection after having a year under their belt. For whether it be that, whether it be him actually being a receiving threat, the way he runs, what were the things that you were hopeful he could make some strides on from last year to this year after having such an incredible breakout season? Yeah,
you hit on it. You can tell that he put the work in the spring to be a better pass protector, not only on the physical side of it, not that he would ever turn down, but in his technique in blocking, as well as his ability to know we have the protection here, we need to change it to that side. What's the communication with Bake, with the O-line, so that he's going to the right guy and he's putting a ton of work in on that side of it. He can always be better as a runner, even though he had a great season last year, but then as well as finding ways to get him the ball in the pass game that might not necessarily just be check down routes out of the backfield. Some of the things you saw in the Pittsburgh game with Teddy throwing the ball on the fade route, but having him as a route runner as well, and it's not just something out of the backfield where we're trying to check it down to him. He could be more of the intended receiver.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. We have one more segment coming up here on Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health with offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard. This is Buccaneers Radio. Welcome back in. It's time for our final segment here on Buccaneers Total Access with offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard. So looking at, we talked a little bit about Bucky and his growth. What about Rashad and Sean Tucker and just the way that, I mean, Guy, you have such great options in that running back room to have three guys with such unique skill sets that all really can bring something cool to the table.
Yeah, their versatility and being able to use each of their skill sets in different ways, it is good because you can hand it to Buck or you can also throw it to him, like we talked about, whether it's in an empty formation and he's split out like a receiver or from the backfield. And then Rashad brings that same mentality as well, where you can't hand it to him. He's really good in the screen game as well as being a good route runner. And then what you've seen from Tuck, really back to last season as well as in camp, is he has that extra gear as well, where the play might not be blocked up perfectly, but if he gets the thing around the edge, it can turn into an explosive play because he has the juice to really bend the corner and create explosives in the run game.
And tell me about your tight end room. I mean, we basically hit copy paste from last year. No changes or notes on the personnel side.
Yep.
So tell me why y'all felt that way. If you were like, all right, we're good in this room, no changes needed, and what you're hopeful for out of the room as a whole.
Yeah, it starts with Cade and his versatility to be good in the run game as well as good in the pass game. It's very hard to find tight ends in the NFL that you really feel good about those guys in both. That they can hold up in protection, but you can also throw them the ball and they're physical in the run game. So he's able to do that, which is a testament to him. And then once you get into Payne and Co. and those guys being the tone setters and really the meatheads of being able to play smash mouth football at times and then being able to block ends or wrap for backers, and they really embrace that role and they really enjoy it. And then as well as what Dev's able to do in the pass game and being able to get him going on. I know he wasn't active this past week, but had some good moments in camp on some explosive playability when he's matched up on a backer or on a safety because he is so much faster.
And do you see their role having to change at all with Tristan's injury? Was that one of the ways that you were kind of working to think, oh man, how do I try to make up for Tristan when you said you can't replace him? Did you feel like suddenly, man, it's very important that these guys are willing to maybe do a little bit more blocking?
For sure. It's a very week-to-week thing based on who we're playing that week, on how much help or not help that we're going to have to give the offensive line. But those guys have embraced that if it is a role where they need to go help chip the D in because he's a premier player. That way it's a slightly longer rush for him to try to get to the quarterback, and they just embrace that like a lot of the guys because essentially everybody that we have on the offense is selfless and they just want to do what it takes to win, and those guys really embody that.
So now we're going into Monday Night Football, first primetime game as an OC here. Yep. Tell me what it's done for you schedule-wise of how you want to embrace it, to know you have that extra day of prep, which I'm sure a guy like you, you're going to take every spare second that you have. And how does that affect the game planning and the schedule on this end? And then how are you trying to prepare for that unfortunate short week on the other side of it?
Yeah, it's twofold. You do get that extra time to be able to prepare and put the best plan together possible to put our guys in a position to go out and make plays and score points, which is good because especially coming off that physical game, being on the road in Atlanta, being able to have a chance for these guys to rest a little bit more before we play Monday. But then we never want to overlook that opponent, but they also have to have that mentality of what can I do to help my body in preparation this week, because it is going to be a short week after we play Houston. But I know they're juiced up. Anytime you have a chance to play on Monday night, especially now it's on the road, we know it's a hostile environment, very loud environment, and one of the better defenses in the NFL. So it'll be a great challenge, and I know they're ready for it, and we've already started the prep work.
That's great. And yeah, I wanted to hear a little bit about their defensive. Let's start with maybe their defensive front. What stood out to you so far on tape?
Just how physical they are and how they come off the ball. We refer to it as a jet technique, where they're jetting up the field, and their ability with those guys, whether it's Anderson coming off the edge or Danielle Hunter, they really set the tone of the defense. But you can tell from that position all the way through the stack linebackers and Aziz and then Petrie playing the nickel, they run to the football. It's a lot of the things that we harp on as an offense with our guys running to the ball and helping each other up and playing harder than the other team. They embody that as well. They're very well coached. It's a very good scheme. They've been running the scheme for a long time. They know exactly where they want to be, and they're going to have a population to the football to try to get us on the ground and then come back play after play. And we like to believe we do the same thing.
Yeah, and how about their secondary? What stands out there?
Yeah, it starts with Stingley, one of the better cover corners in the NFL, really a ball hawk, a lot of interceptions last year, Lassiter on the other side being a really good player, and then especially on the safeties as well. We have a little bit of the history there with Chauncey playing him last year, acquiring him via the trade, but it's a great unit from even on the interior D-line through the stack linebackers, the corners, as well as the safeties. They know exactly where everybody's supposed to be, and again, they play very hard, and it's a very well-knit unit.
And then for you, looking at your first year as the offensive coordinator, we always like to get to know some of the new coaches a bit on the show as well. What is it about play calling and coaching that has drawn you to it over the years, of where you knew a long time ago, I think, that this was probably where you wanted to be? So what is it about this role and this job that you love?
I really enjoy every element to it. It starts with the camaraderie with the staff, because we're with those guys even more than the players, even more than our family. So being able to spend time with them and always making it fun and watching tape with them, I really enjoy watching tape. I look at it as a hobby, so it's never a part of work. So being able to do that as a job is fantastic. And then the camaraderie with the players and getting the scheme together and trying to be on the same page to go out there and score points, and the time we spend with them is really cool. And then now I would say calling the plays, I didn't know like what to expect going into it on how much fun it would be, but it is a ton of fun. It's almost like you're playing the game again, because as a assistant coach or assistant position coach or quality control, you're involved in the game and you're dealing with substitutions and the adjustments, but actually being able to call the plays, it feels like you're even more part of the game, which I haven't felt since I was a player. And that's been a good number of years now, so it's a lot of fun.
I love it. And for you so far, has there been anything about the job that has surprised you, or some of the bigger challenges with it maybe compared to what you thought coming in?
I expected it coming in, but it is something you learn. I'm still learning on a day-to-day basis on the communication with not only the players but the staff, and making sure they're aligned and being very clear in my communication to them on what is expected, what's our schedule as a staff, what's the schedule as the players, how we need to conduct practice, how disciplined we need to be, and then the amount of questions that come from not only the staff but the players, and having an answer for them and a why we're doing things, and just knowing that if they're coming to me with a question or an idea, that is something that they don't take lightly because they feel like it's going to help us, and I need to listen to that and be able to determine if what their vision aligns with the entire staffs and the players to be able to go out there and put a good product on the field.
And what would you say you want your identity to be as an offensive coordinator, both in terms of what a Josh Grizzard offense looks like, and then also maybe what players and coaches would say about you and your approach to it off the field?
When the opponent turns on the film, we want it to be that they appreciate how physical and how hard we play, and how much stress we put on them by being able to utilize different personnel groupings and making things look the same in the run game and the pass game. And then from what they should expect from me, and which I'd like to hang my hat on, is the consistency of whether we have a good practice or a great drive or a bad practice, that I'm going to be pretty much even keeled and then get after them when we need to be able to make sure that everyone is aligned, but not someone that's going to be so up and down where they don't know exactly what to expect from me from a day-to-day basis.
And how did you make the decision of on-field versus in the booth? I know you tried both things in the preseason, and what you ultimately decided on and what got you there.
I really enjoyed being on the field and the communication, how quick it was with the staff and the players on what would just happen on that play, who's going into the game on the next play. I think that instant feedback makes it just a hair quicker than being in the booth, even though you can see it slightly better from the booth. I have all the confidence in the world in those guys upstairs on relaying the right information. So by having that confidence that they're taking care of what's going on up top, I can be the voice on the field to communicate to Bake and the rest of the offense what's happening. And then just being able to talk to Bake as we come off the series and exactly what he saw. And there's not him putting on a headset and now coming off to the side and we have to talk about it. It's he comes down, he sits on the bench. We got the iPad, we're sitting there with Thad. We go through it. This was good, this was bad, let's move on.
I love it. And then finally, how much do you feel like being a psychologist is part of the job? If you are going to be down there and talking to Bake, how much does that weigh in your mind? Especially, I mean, you get into a stressful situation in a 2-minute drill. What's going through your head about that side of the job?
Yeah, because you have to look at it twofold on my thought process on what the plays that I'm going to call and getting us in the best position to make plays, but also looking at it from their end as well on if it's not going well, what can we do to put him in a position and now play well, or if this guy's not getting the ball and he needs the ball, or that guy's not getting the ball, or whatever it might be with the offensive line, to be able to look at not only the scheme but from it as a personal level as well to make sure those guys are in a really good spot to go out and make plays.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. We really appreciate it, and really enjoyed watching your debut. And man, you brought an exciting one for Bucs fans in Week 1. So congratulations.
It was fun. We hope to make them proud. Hope to get better each and every week as a unit and go out and score points, and hopefully get that done again this week versus Houston.
I love it. All right, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health. This has been offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard and head coach Todd Bowles. This is Buccaneers Radio.